Welcome to the March 2022 meeting of the Historic Highway 99 Association of California. We, let's see, got some new, new business, I guess. We are still working on getting signage at the Pine and the Palm at, just south of Madera. Our historic route signs in Madera are still there, doing well, that we got installed back in November. But with that in mind, one of the signs did get stolen. It has since been replaced and relocated by the city of Madera. So, some positives there. Things are slow, but one thing also I will say that I am going to be in the process of moving in the next 3 months, within the next 3 months. So I'll be a little behind on things, but gonna do what I can. We also are working on sending out letters when various memberships are coming up for renewal. Since we started the program for memberships back in March of last year. So if you are a member or haven't received something, expect when your membership comes up. We'll probably send it out a month or so before your membership comes up. So without further ado, last year, I was all about stating, hey, I got this trip coming up. I'm going to be going up to Lake Shasta is going to be really low. And I'm planning on going up in November. Well, timing really worked out because as it turns out, the low point was about 2 weeks or so before I was able to finally make the trip. Timing just happened to work out that way. But as a result, just the change between the low point and the high point was minimal. It was a few feet, and none of those made a difference to what we saw with Highway 99. So I'm going to start the presentation here. Let's see what I can do here. How do I? Let's see, slideshow from the beginning. All right, so display settings, I'm going to swap. All right, so gonna go ahead and start this. All right. So here we go. All right, so went to Lake Shasta in November of 2021. And here we go. You can see what, I'm sorry. You're gonna see a lot of low lake levels and old bridges. So a little background for those that are unfamiliar with Lake Shasta itself. So it is the head of the Federal Central Valley Project. This is a irrigation / reclamation project. It started quite some time ago, but there's power coming from the dam. There's it controls the water. There's not an aqueduct. There's not a canal directly starting from the dam, but those reservoirs help regulate lower, the water below. They started studies for a dam back in the 20s, started construction finally in the 30s, late 30s. As a result, major sections of US 99 and the Southern Pacific Railroad needed to be relocated. Those are still what are in use today, with some exceptions. There were 30 new miles of railroad line, but only 19.5 miles of new highway. consider railroads require a shallower grade. Max grade on a class 1, I think, is barely 2%. And they had to, elevate it above the height of the reservoir by quite a bit. So required much more of a pullback. The whole thing was completed in January of 45. They filled in the last bit on the dam and basically started filling it up. Now here's the thing, is that full pool at Shasta is 1,067 feet. That is a normal, everything's full. That is the high as it gets. Now, the worst drought, of course, was the one in 77, where, as a reference point, it was at 829 feet versus 10,000 or 1,067 feet. Quite a difference. There was 578,000 acre feet of storage. It was unbelievably low. The drought wasn't necessarily more severe than what happened in 2021, but there's been policy changes. At the time, they were just releasing water and didn't think anything of it. And then they started realizing that they've released too much, and it just dropped. So it's unlikely that it's going to reach that point unless we have even more severe droughts. But even then, at its lowest possible level, the Pitt River Bridge, the famous arch bridge there, just to the east of the current bridge, was still 100 feet down. Basically, the reservoir would have to almost completely empty. But moving forward in time, from 1977, you had droughts in 1991, which was about 915 feet. 1994, 958 feet. To that, one thing to that, those two particular droughts is that one of the people that lives up in that area, Jill Livingston, who wrote 3 really good, honestly, really good books on 99 from border to border, took a lot of pictures during that period and showed the bridges, like, for example, that one of the bridges in particular is the Salt Creek Bridge. That gets exposed more often. It's fairly high up, but nonetheless, that was in the book, so it gives you an idea. In 08, there was another drop, even further, 909 feet. 14, it dropped to 889 feet. And in 21, it dropped to 882 feet. 21 was the lowest drop since 77. We'll see what happens in 22. It's gone up, but not as much as it necessarily should have, but we're not at the high point yet. Spring hasn't fully sprung yet, if you will. Now, to fully expose the highway, with the exception of course, the depths of Pitt River, you need about 910 feet at elevation. So it's 167 feet below the full pool. On November 9th of 2021, the day I arrived at Lake Shasta, it was at 891.34 feet. It's 175 feet below full pool. And on here, I also have a link if you want to, check out the info yourself. They have there's a lot of really good information there. So here's a graph of what things were like. Give you an idea. It was just steady down. It just dropped. And then 2 things happened. One, beyond a certain point, which I believe was October 1st, the rules changed for Lake Shasta, but beyond a certain point, they were required to release the water because it's not their water. It goes somewhere else. After a certain point, then they can start retaining it. Trouble is, there was no water coming in. There was no additional rain. So it kept on dropping. For reference, the water year is October 1st to September 30th. So on October 21st, it really reached its lowest point, 882.24 feet. And then not long after, storms started hitting. Much to my consternation, it was like, we're so close. I want to see it at its lowest point. And then that storm hit, and then it just kind of tapered, and it actually started dropping again. When I showed up, it was in the middle of a storm, but it was still, the change was so light, it didn't make any difference. So as we arrived at Lake Shasta on November 9th at around noon. Rain was forecast most of the day, and it did rain most of the day. It rained even the next day. So day one, our first stop was meeting, well, we had another friend actually coming up from San Diego. We met at Bridge Bay, and you'll see photos of that, and it was just, I was in awe because I'd never seen it quite so low. Then we stopped up over at Bailey Cove, gave a kind of a rundown there. Salt Creek, we made a stop, a bit of a walk around. And then, of course, the highlight was Pollock Bridge. From that point, on the trip, we proceeded north, as far north as Ashland, Oregon, where allegedly we went over Siskiyou Summit, but I didn't see it. It was shrouded in thick fog and raining, with snow along the sides. It was fun. Once we got to Ashland, it was nice, but still. And then we overnighted in Wairika, right on 99. Day after that, made our way south, returned to Lake Shasta from Wairika. So we were there, midday. And that was on the 11th. The weather was clear, it was sunny, mild, it was beautiful that day. That day we stopped again at the Pollock Bridge. We went to Bridge Bay, as well as cover the Pitt River Bridge. And I did misspell Pitt River. Okay. So like I said, it was raining. It was kind of foggy, misty, but that is the view from the parking lot looking out towards the reservoir. It just shows the magnitude of the drought. It was awesome. I don't even know how to describe it, how amazing it was to see it that low. So it gives you an idea. Water is coming into the reservoir, and it is slowly rising, but the difference between the low point and this was just a few feet. It was negligible. So here's a photo from January 1940 to give some perspective. Now, unfortunately, I'm not sure if you can see my mouse, but a couple things. One, this is original US 99, winding its way. This is the Pitt River Bridge. Here is the new Pitt River Bridge. Now, 99 itself was exposed here in 2021 down to about this area here. You could see where the Big Dip was, where where it goes into the canyon. And if you notice, here's an old alignment, here's an old alignment, and here's another old alignment. This is all basically 1920s alignment, with the exception of the bridge. I believe that dates back a little bit further, back to the teens. They just align things to it. And also one other thing, here's the railroad line cutting through here. So yeah, this is the view looking toward the current Pitt River Bridge, with most of the piers well exposed. For scale, you can see the large trucks here on, the big rigs going across. And normally the water could be as high as almost up to the hinge points here. Yet it's all the way down there. Now, before I go further, special thing to note here, that's paving. This is paving. That paving, they just buried, but it's still there. And you can see stubs of trees all throughout this area. And also, just apologize, a little bit of out of order. This is on November 9th. I'm doing things in geographic order. So I'm working south to north. And this is on November 11th. In the background here, you also may notice the limestones that are where Shasta Lake Caverns is located, or Lake Shasta Caverns. Still haven't visited there. So now we're at ground level here. You can see the highway cuts, the highway winding around. This is a anchor and cable for boats, well, not boats, but docks and what have you. It's a huge bridge. This is still I could be wrong about this, but for the longest time, and it may still be, the tallest double-decker railroad highway bridge in the world. It's still a record setter. So with this in mind, here's the reservoir level at 800, basically about 889 feet. The old highway is still basically 150 feet below this river, below that water. And so it's this distance and then some. Going back in time, the bridge is mostly complete. And you can see old US 99, solid white stripe. Power lines, here's the cut. It's this cut. This cut is this cut. This particular photo was taken, I think, in about 42, 43. So you can also see there's still work going on if you notice the mesh to basically, save the workers below it. But getting these pictures of this bridge is just it's interesting seeing it in this way. Also interesting is this, you can see the path of the highway. Here's the cut, the highway followed here, wound its way through here, and you notice sections of paving. Additional sections of paving. This whole pier, which is one of the taller ones, is almost, you can almost touch it. It's almost at the point of ground level. Here's original US 99 paving, and more importantly, this is the center line. Here's actual white striping. Just below the bridge. See you really get a picture of how much loss there was. Once again, white striping, plainly visible. This I found to be just totally awesome because you don't get to see this that often. And if you'll also notice, there's tree trunks going along here. They chopped the tree off and just left the trunk, and well, now it's uncovered. Great section of white striping. It's interesting that it broke along the median here, but I think that could be, I'm not 100% certain of the reason. It could be they paved one side and they paved the other, making a weak point. But nonetheless, so we're down to the lowest point. This is not erosion from the reservoir. This is a road cut. The highway continued through this point, made this curve here, and then continued out to the lake. So we're looking back, heading back, and you can see a section of the tree, again, the paving and all the sediment that has been deposited. Look closer at the reservoir itself. Here's a road cut. Here's another road cut. Looking back again, you see the white striping. So going north, Bailey Cove. Bailey Cove, this is again a photo, same day, July 12th, 1940. That was taken, showing construction. This is, let's see if I remember this right. Okay, so this is the new highway. This is US 99. This is the railroad. This is original US 99. This still exists, but this curve in has now been shortened because this side here is, well, there's been some modifications, but this has been cut short. So the Bailey Cove boat launch area is in this vicinity here. So this section of highway is still visible up until somewhere around here, even on the at the low end, like it was back in 21. Here's the boat launch, and there's bench here is the old highway, then proceeding down, winding its way down. And you can see it is raining at this time. A little bit more of a close-up here. Obviously, they cut across, they cut the boat launch through here. A little perspective on the old highway there. There's still paving, bits and pieces further down. Salt Creek, one of my favorites. Nice bridge, highway leading off, and you can see the creek. What I see here is a really tall bridge and a denuded area, but I see a creek going through its channel. There's no reservoir here. And here's the bridge. Now, a couple things to note here. You have the current bridge, and then below here, you'll see this bit of concrete, this bit of concrete, and this. That is the original bridge from the teens. When they built the new highway, it was coming from a different angle. I'll show that. And they raised the grade of the highway, so, you know, constructed this new bridge. Nice underdeck shot. Like I said, this is Salt Creek flowing through. It's not going through a reservoir. 1925. It's a nice bridge. Actually, one of the larger spans that is intact underneath Lake Shasta. This is the Pollock Bridge. Looking down the creek, you can see multiple stumps of the, you know, former trees, but the grass is growing in. The creek is a bit higher because this is during a storm. See, there's been work to try to retain this roadway because this is also very close to a point where the lake level oscillates just enough to make it to where you get a lot more erosion. The thing to note is that this is a single track railroad, but the provisions were in place for double track. And you can see, of course, a section of the 99 paving. So this is a silly photo, but you can see me standing here at the end of the bridge. Now, I have a similar picture. I'm not sure if I included it. I don't think I did. Where I'm standing in a wetsuit, much like I am in this photo, where I'm about waist deep in the water. So the reservoir, you know, the bridge is not fully uncovered. So I'm standing at the same spot, but now it's completely exposed. Salt Creek at this time empties into the Sacramento River. That's a different way of putting it's that low. So looking up from the end, or from the north end of the bridge, see this bit of erosion here. The end caps are somewhat exposed. But again, what do you see here? White striping. Somehow the reservoir seems to retain it. Don't know, but nonetheless, it's awesome. It's a lot. The longest, rephrase that, the longest sections of intact white striping that I've ever seen in the state on US 99, well, and on US 99 are underneath Lake Shasta. Or normally underneath Lake Shasta. So this is looking a little bit further down. You can see, the highways bending around here. There was a modification done here back in the 20s. Highway used to make a bigger curve. Now, I mentioned about a realignment. There, you saw the old bridge below the current Salt Creek Bridge. Here is the old alignment, winding its way down. You can see there's obviously been some fill here, but the highway continued down here, reaching the bridge at a lower point. So put that in place with this. That's the old alignment came down here and then went across that way. As you can see there. Okay. So realignment of US 99 over the Lake Shasta area, let me rephrase that. The realignment was more or less incorporated into current Interstate 5, one direction or the other. However, there was a section, and this case happens to be in the Salt Creek area, where the original alignment was not retained, and they built the freeway on a different grade. Here's a section of that original alignment by Salt Creek, where you can see a section of original 1940s railing. Long sections still intact, which is, it's pretty awesome. Now with that, so this is curved metal railing. This railing is generally used, it was used heavily in the 1950s, but it started in the 40s. The difference between 40s versus 50s on this is you can see the posts extend further up. Earlier versions, they basically replaced a wooden bar with a metal one. Later, they lowered the posts. But here you go. 1940s, original railing still intact, with vestiges of a paint, like a black and white, probably paint on there. And what I consider to be the highlight of the whole thing. Okay, so this is the GPS in the car. We had a bit of a laugh about this because, well, you may notice that we're in the middle of a reservoir. But we drove there, so obviously we're not. The Pollock Bridge. I've seen this very cut, filled with water, either or partially filled with water. I've seen part of the bridge, but I've never seen all the way to the end. This is Salt Creek, where US 99 continues up, emptying into the Sacramento River. So we'll get back to this part. All right, so this is the Charlie or Doney Creek. Hit me on this. I don't remember which is which, but this is the southern bridge, which is double decked. You can see here's the creek. You can faintly see the old alignment going through there. At the time, it was kind of drizzly and rainy. See what, at some point there are boat ramps here. Why'd have a boat ramp to such a small creek? Beautiful. It's a beautiful span. Very ornate, stereotypical of that period in the 20s. This I found to be interesting. This is a stump of a tree that predates the reservoir, and a boulder that is sitting atop the remains of the stump. And the Pollock Bridge. The bridge that was, to me, the highlight of the whole trip. So many things going on here. First of all, you may notice these little bumps here. This bridge had metal pipe railing, and those are simply the base to that railing. This bridge was constructed, I think it was 1917. Be wrong about that, I remember. But it is a teens bridge, and that style had that railing. Now, you may also notice that the bridge changes shape here. This span here formerly had the Sacramento River, which is now way over here. So at some point, the Sacramento River flowed through here. There's a lot of sediment that has been deposited. The Southern Pacific Railroad went under the initial span, this one here. And once again, here's our lovely white stripe that it is very visible down the middle of most of the exposed sections of paving. And you can see the Sacramento River has obviously shifted, but the highway used to go up this canyon, winding its way through. White striping, very visible. It's 1940 all over again. It's really awesome. And the end of the bridge, as it reaches the Sacramento River itself. So the last span was washed out and partially failed, hence the down portion here, and subsequently covered with heavy amounts of sediment. You can see how thick that sediment is down below. Now, in that sediment, you may, right at the base of the bridge, see these large paws. Those aren't dogs, those are bears. It's also extremely thick, fine sediments that are, cracking as a result of desiccation. And covered with a little bit of like a moss almost. But here's a long view of the bridge. This is the span that formerly traversed the Sacramento River, which again is now way over here. And yes, the bridge does go down quite a bit. There's a lot of sediment that was dumped here. Looking a little closer, you can get an idea of the span. It's pretty awesome. This bridge is rarely fully exposed. And the fact that I got to go there and see it with my own eyes was just amazing. So this is something I thought was interesting. When I was traveling through this area and, doing doing the exploration, I noticed something about this bridge. It seemed a little odd at this end. One side of the span is linear. The other side of the span curves. As it turns out, this the approach had been modified. This is the original bridge that they used this bridge, through the 1920s alignments or realignments. The way bridges were constructed at the time is they found the best possible location for the bridge, regardless of whether or not that was a detriment to the highway itself. Meaning you got a lot of 90-degree bends at bridges because this is the easiest way to build the bridge. We'll figure out how to connect the highway. And here is proof of that. Originally, US 99 came from the left and then went south. It did not make this straight cut through that it does today. And I just had to re-sign US Highway 99 there. This particular 99 shield is a Jake Bear original. It is made to spec. Those are glass cat eyes. That is an Auto Club logo. And that is pretty much the shield that you would have seen at that, had there been a shield at the highway at the time. It was honestly a lot of fun. So you're looking here a bit above the bridge. Again, that white striping is just as clear as day. Here's the old highway winding its way up Salt Creek. And again, this old alignment. Now coming back, in the sunnier days, the striping is even more obvious. It's still just amazing how intact it was. It looks, this was the last time this was resurfaced was probably before 1940. This may well be the oldest exposed white striping outside of the Ridge Route in the state of California. So this is looking through the cut. See stumps of trees here, surrounding. Geologically, I've always found this cut to be fascinating to me. You have Mississippian, multiple, like at least 300 million year old sediments here. These are very highly contorted. They are originally oceanic deposits. And above that, you have river gravels. And yet above that, to an extent, you have lake bed deposits from Shasta Lake. So this is actually fairly young. You're looking at, say this is about 330 million approximately. Above this, you're looking at, last few 100,000 years. And now the river's way down here. It attests to the amount of uplift that's going through the air. There's a few other things, but I just thought this was cool. So we're looking back. Here's US 99 making its way out of the reservoir. Stumps of trees. So here's the car that, according to the GPS, is in the middle of a reservoir. And my husband and our friend here from San Diego. I'm still just amazed at how wonderfully intact this bridge was, despite the collapse there at the other end because of the shifting of the river. But this was just amazing to see this in its entirety. I've seen it partially, submerged before, but now it's full. Presently, I believe this bridge is now fully submerged again. Close-up of the bottom of the railing. This type of pipe railing is very common with Teens bridges throughout the northern section of the Pacific Highway. You go through Sacramento River Canyon, you're going to see quite a few bridges with this style railing. And again, beautifully exposed white striping. What I found to be interesting is you can see the angle that the bridge is descending But you see these horizontal lines here. This is not from the lake. This is how they pour the concrete. So it was poured level. So that must have been some interesting false work. With that with the old alignment I was mentioning in mind earlier, how this side is curved, is still visible here. This is the alignment leading off. So basically, instead of going through the cut like it does now, highway took off to the right and gradually went up. A little close up here of the north abutment. And a nice view of very heavily contorted and partially faulted cherts and whatnot from the Mississippian period. Very old sediments with actually fairly well imbricated river sediments above it. Looking out towards what the town site of Pollock, which is now the river site. There's a cistern up here, which in times past I've walked from the other side over to here. Here's a cut. Here's a cut for US 99. This blob here is actually sediment that has been deposited since the reservoir was, since the reservoir started. Looking back, you can see that same bridge, US 90, or the Sacramento River flowing through here. The railroad went along the bottom here. US 99, even pre-reservoir, followed along here. Something else to note, just a bit of geologic interest here. You'll see these sediments here, or these here. This is actually, which are different than this. This is actually a lava flow that emanated from Mount Shasta that flowed all the way down Sacramento River Canyon to what is now the Lake Shasta area. It flowed down the canyon, down the riverbed, basically blocked it up and made it's more resistant to erosion. So the river, still trying to downcut because of regional uplift, went to the side and then went down. So this is the old river channel, and now the new channel is off to the side. And there's a few railroad structures that were exposed. This tunnel, not uncommon for it to be completely exposed as it is. Though I will just say, if it's raining, be very careful when you're walking through there. Lake bed sediments are slippery. I, knowing this, still slipped. No harm, but just be careful. It is possible to traverse this tunnel in its entirety. There are some collapses, so again, be careful. Now this, it's completely worn off, but this used to have a date on it. This is Tunnel 5 along the river, or along the Southern Pacific Railroad. Built in the teens, and then lined with concrete in the 20s. Now this is, behind me would be that same tunnel. This is Charlie Creek, emptying into the Sacramento. And you can see here a bit of concrete that's a part of a concrete structure for the railroad itself, basically preventing erosion from the river. If you look above, you can see a bit of stonework for US 99. And again, that basaltic rock from the lava flow that once flowed down the Sacramento River Canyon. A little bit close up there, you can also see how there's a little bit of a waterfall there. And then one of the other highlights, back in 2008 or 9, or pretty sure it was '08. Lake level was pretty low, and I got the chance to go out here. At the time, I put on a wetsuit and I said, you know, I'm going to go over to that bridge. I don't care. I want to touch it. I want to be there. And so I swam out to the bridge. At the time, it was half submerged, and as was, of course, the tunnel. This is Tunnel 4 and the bridge over the Sacramento River. This is also not very far away from where you actually finally reached Lake Shasta. Being as the storm was ongoing, you can see how the lake level was higher, the river level was higher, so it was not going to be safe to go out there. I was ready to do it, just to do it again, but did not this time. It's kind of blurry, but you can see 2 dates here. You can also see a large amount of debris that has now blocked the tunnel. But this is the fully exposed bridge. The water is still flowing underneath the bridge. A bit closer, you can see the kind of this part of the tunnel is really a kind of a rock shed, and you can see here's some rocks. But there we go. Oops. And I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing. Okay. Oops. Okay. So that is Lake Shasta in November, early November of 2021. Does anybody have any questions or want to go over any particular sections or what have you?
I'm always fascinated at the Charlie and Donny Creek bridges, and the fact that they had the foresight to just keep those bridges in place, just raise the deck a few feet. That's always fascinated me.
Well, the funny thing is also with that in mind, originally they didn't raise the deck.
I heard about that, yes.
I've seen pictures where the, you know, at full pool, maybe they didn't quite calculate things right. Water was flooding the deck. So there was a point where they decided, yeah, we'll make some modifications. And of course, then they raised the deck. But it's still awesome that those bridges are still in place. They are the highlights of even a higher level reservoir.
I also heard too, and I don't know if maybe you saw it or not, but someone had, it was, I'm trying to remember where I saw that, where not too far from the Pollock Bridge, and I think it was probably up on top of the cut, that someone had saw a C block up there.
There are on the, and I have pictures of such. I found a few on the other side of the river, on the Salt Creek side. Guaranteed. I don't recall having, I scoured the area. I don't recall having seen one on the north side of the span.
I mean, that could have been Salt Creek that I saw the picture of, but I just, you know, it was on top of a cut, and
yes,
and definitely, you know, within the lake bed. So that's why I was curious if maybe you might have seen something else there.
Yeah, no, that there's definitely one on the north side. Since this is the photo, it's actually somewhere in this vicinity here. You can barely see it in this photo, but there's look, a line here. That is stone arch railing. And there is a sea monument right above here. So I can guarantee you there's at least one in this photo. But because of the nature of the storm and, you know, to be honest, since it was raining and I'd already made the hike all the way down Salt Creek back in either 08 or 09, we kind of skipped that. it was going to be really muddy and really much of a problem. So no, we don't quite have the time for that. Let's focus on the fun stuff, like a bridge that's fully exposed. Which even from here, you can still see the white stripe. It was awesome. I was very pleased that I got the opportunity to document US 99 through that area. We really lucked out. Does anybody else have any additional questions or what have you? It doesn't necessarily have to be about Lake Shasta. It could be anything 99 or anything that 99 Association is doing, or something you want to see the 99 Association doing.
Well, actually, I seem to recall last meeting, I think I asked you because you said you'd gone all the way up to Ashland. And so were you able to make it out to Emigrant Lake?
It was raining, so no, but I did see it. I did see the concrete leading off of the current highway. So I did see it.
Yeah,
I did not get the opportunity to make the walk.
Trying to see if I have, I don't know if I have the photo here. Probably do not. I know I have it. So I actually walked down to Klamath Junction and was able to take a few pictures down there. And then, and of course, the old highway as it's heading towards the Emigrant Dam. And so that was pretty cool, you know, being able to stand at the junction. You look north or south on 99, and you look as the former US 97 took off to the east. That was pretty cool.
And that's the thing is former US 97. That's its own little thing in itself. Before it was realigned down through Doris and Goose Lake.
It was just on that particular trip that we actually went on the old highway, which is now marked Oregon 66. But
yes,
we're driving. We got up the Pinehurst, which is another 15 miles up the road, and very windy, scenic road. But we ended up shredding a serpentine belt on the vehicle, and we're stuck up there for about 4 hours waiting for a AAA tow to come up. Pretty isolated up there.
yeah, it's definitely an interesting area. Yeah.
What's really interesting is, and I know it's not California, but it's as you're going over the Siskiyou Summit, and there are two. Of course, there's the where the current old highway goes, you know, off the freeway, but then also the original alignment, which runs a little bit to the east.
Yes.
And I know there was somebody up in Portland up there who they punched through there as much as they could, but it's almost all private property, and it's blocked off at one point. But that would be an interesting run to look through as well, because there's a lot of intact roadway up there.
Yeah, we did our best. The weather was actually cooperative briefly when we were heading up, and we took Jefferson Road, or is Jefferson
Road, yeah.
Yeah, and we're met with a really large fence that had, yeah, we're monitoring you all the time. Don't pass here. Like, well, this is a far cry from the last time I was here. Last time it felt awkward passing the house right before the California-Oregon border. Yeah, now I feel awkward just going up to the fence.
Yeah, I've wanted to do that. I've just been more or less intimidated by the signage, and so.
Well, the signage is one thing, but this was actually it was a locked fence, and it was a big to-do not long after the Hilt exit. So we were cut short pretty quick.
Yeah, but no, that one is fascinating. And of course, you know, once you get to the summit, there's a I didn't realize, I knew that cut was in there, and Jill Livingston's books, she's got pictures of the summit prior to, with still had the beacon station up there and
Yes.
such. And it wasn't until, and I know I've got these pictures, but it wasn't until really not that long ago, I was trying to figure out where the alignment went, because they said, oh, the cut destroyed the summit. Well, I didn't realize just how much it destroyed the summit until finally I saw the background on a picture. It's a picture of two women standing at the current old Siskiyou summit. And in the background is the cut. This was not too long after that highway opened, because I didn't see it before, but on the top of that cut, on one side was the beacon station, and the other side was the Summit Inn, or the thing that was up there. So that the cut went right between those two buildings.
Huh.
But I didn't see it because it's in the background. But I was like, holy smokes, sure enough, So that just showed where the original alignment went off to the east and then went across the cut, and of course it went across the current cut of where I-5 cuts through the summit, and then it comes out on the north side of I-5, or the northwest side of I-5, I think it is on that point. But a lot, the signs are still there, but you have to know where to look.
Yeah, it's sometimes finding old alignments in places like that, or it's an art form almost. It's science. You look for certain clues. It's archaeologists. Yeah, you really start gaining a respect for their work when you really start getting into the old alignments like that, because of how subtle it might be. One of the things I noticed when we were heading south is we took 99 north and we took 5 coming back, which, yeah, obviously a newer version of 99, but where the railroad crossed, we could see how they modified the bridge. You could see the old abutments, which were very deco, because I think it was realigned in the 30s over Siskiyou. But it was a fun little trip. The weather was perfect, and we stopped at the Steinman overcrossing. So I got plenty of pictures there. Got a chance to fully explore that.
Yeah, that's a kind of a fun little tidbit of the old route.
Yeah, it's the only part on US 99 that I'm aware of that looped.
Yep, crossed over itself.
Yes. And that's a heck of a trip.
Yeah. At the bottom of there, before you get to the Emigrant Lake, there is an old roadhouse. As you're going northbound, it's on the left-hand side.
I think I probably saw it. I just didn't. I don't remember. I definitely saw it.
Yeah, that was a stage house. It had been B&B up until a few years ago. But that was the original stage house, because the original stage road over the pass went up over the Steinman Road. But when you got to the summit, instead of dropping down the way it currently does, it went over what is the Coluston Road, and it dropped down into Hilt, the lower part of Hilt by the railroad. The other stage house on the other side is still standing there as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so it's pretty cool. I think I got a sign out front of it. It hadn't been a B&B. I don't know what they were using it for, but it's a beautiful old building. It's really cool. But it's just before the road crosses from the border from California to Oregon, and so it's on the California side of the border.
Let's take a look at that. Yeah, one other future presentation may be photos from that trip. We took quite a few. There's a lot of interesting stuff up that way. I could do a whole thing from Wairika up to Oregon.
And I told you about the Wairika Arch, right?
Yes, I don't remember. Unfortunately, I don't think I went to it, but I'm familiar.
Yeah, it is no longer spanning 99. Because it was too narrow, and so when they widened the road through town, the arch is actually now at the city center exit of I-5, and when you take that exit and the road splits into a couple of one ways, and right at that split, you can find it. Google Maps, you can go Street View, you can see it. But right at that split, you see the Wairika Arch sitting there, and that's where they put it.
Well, we are working on trying to get photos of all the arches. So if anybody has any photos of that, that would be really cool.
Like I said, I'm heading south in a month, and I will if I stay true to form, I will stop and take a photo. So.
So that's nice. That's the presentation. Our next presentation will be, let's see, March, April. So in May, we'll see how that all goes. I'm going to be in the process of moving and whatnot. So I'm going to do my best to get a guest presenter. So if nothing else, to be honest, I'll have less work. But I took that trip up to Northern California, followed US 99 from basically Bakersfield on up, multiple stops. I don't see any reason why I couldn't do a presentation showing photos from that trip, because there was a lot of really cool stuff. Single slab concrete in places you didn't know it existed, old bridges, old signs. I think it was a 7-Up sign we found was really cool up in Fresno. Of course, the historic 99 signs in Madera. Got a lot. The last traffic signal on 99 between LA and Sacramento. Finally got the chance to see that in Livingston. So there's a lot to cover.
I think it'd be fun to see. I mean, it's like, well, we know about your trip, Michael, and we know about, of course, Shasta was really cool. That was a great presentation. But you took a lot of pictures, a lot of cool stuff. Let's see them.
Well, yeah, I'm happy to share. So thank you everybody for coming to the meeting. I look forward to the future meetings, and keep informed. Make sure like and subscribe or whatever. We do post these on our YouTube channel, as well as let people know through our website, historic99.org, and our Twitter and our Instagram. We have quite a few things. Historic99.org, of course, is our main method to get info out. So thank everybody again for coming. And I think that pretty well concludes our meeting.
All right. Well, thank you again.
Thank you.
All right. We'll see you later.
See ya.